live. O'Leary. Chaos. You ready? Do you feel it? Let's go!
Hello and welcome into another episode of Reality Check here on my channel at Matt O'Leary NY. What is going on? I am Matt O'Leary, joined as always by my good friend Jeremy Jets Chaos, aka the sound effect guy that you heard just there in the intro. What's going on, Jeremy? How are you?
Good, man. Here we go. We're midweek. We didn't get to go last week, so I'm just so ready to talk about this team. And there's so much going on. And what an exciting week last week and game, and what an exciting week so far this week.
Absolutely. So make sure to get involved in the chat. If you don't know, it's a very heavy chat involved show. We'll be reacting today to some of the big storylines out of Jets and Giants joint practice. I was there yesterday. I spent more time in the car than I did at the facility, which is always fun, about 5 hours round trip sitting in the car in traffic. But it was a good time at camp hanging out with Richie and Ryan, and we got to see a lot of interesting things. And then today, the Jets and Giants back at it again, this time at the Giants practice facility. I want to start here where it's not necessarily something that happened in practice, but does have an effect on what happened today, I guess. And that's Sauce Gardner being held out with calf soreness. So we have Aaron Glenn just giving a little quick update. I'll play the clip and then we'll react to Aaron Glenn giving an update on Sauce Gardner.
I anticipate him playing this week. All right. So that's good. Sauce wasn't out today. He has some calf soreness. Continue to evaluate him and see exactly where he's at. I anticipate him.
Okay. So not a ton of information, obviously, but what do you make of Sauce Gardner dealing with some calf soreness? And do you agree with the approach the Jets took here today?
Well, you always got to take the safe approach during preseason, right? I mean, I'm sure if this was regular season and we had a big game coming up, you wouldn't keep him off the field, or he'd take practices off but still play. They'd stick a cortisone shot. They'd do whatever they could, unless they evaluate a serious injury, obviously. Look, if there's anything wrong during preseason with your guys, if there's something and you're not sure what it is, the safety, the health, everything comes in easily, because there's nothing important enough other than week one, being ready for week one, being healthy for week one. If something's going on, we need to know what it is. There's no point in panicking. We can't control it. It is going to be what it's going to be. So we just have to hope for the best and hope it's something that he just, nothing serious that's going to keep him out for a long time. But the cautious approach is the only approach.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I saw the day before at Jets camp, where guys like Jermaine Johnson and John Simpson and Mason Taylor and Quinnen Williams, they all returned to practice to some extent, but specifically with Jermaine Johnson and Quinnen Williams, it feels like the Jets are being extra cautious there, which is fine. I'm good with that. It's not, and include Sauce Gardner in this. They're not someone who is desperately needs these preseason reps. We kind of know what they are. Maybe you can make the argument Jermaine does coming off of an injury. He needs to ramp up, but I'm glad that they're doing the ramp up period slow, especially with Jermaine Johnson coming off an Achilles. But, for Sauce being added into this mix, I don't think it's a huge deal. If they shut him down the rest of the preseason, meaning like he doesn't play in the game against the Giants, or he doesn't play, not that the starters usually play anyway in that third preseason game, I don't think it's a huge deal. He got a couple drives against the Packers and looked good. So to me, he seems ready to go for the regular season.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's some like, guys on the offensive line, defensive line, there's a lot of communication. There's a lot of having to practice working together. I'm not saying there's none, but let's say of all the positions, Sauce, man press, the kind of defense they're talking about playing, comparatively to other things, Sauce needs to work on, primarily one thing, and that's coverage. And he gets to go when he's healthy. He gets to practice against one of the best in Garrett Wilson. He says it all the time. Like, they say it about each other during the season. They're like, it doesn't get much harder than when we play against each other. So Sauce, as long as he's able to practice at some point, you don't have to worry about real game time or game time with his team. As long as he gets healthy and he's out there, he's going against the best. He just needs to work on his coverage skills, his handwork, the turning, all the things they're coaching him on. It's not to say it's not a team sport for him, but there's a lot of individuality in what he's doing on the field. He's worried about the guy he has to cover.
Especially if he's playing a lot more man coverage, which I think we all kind of expect from him this year. I like this comment from All American. Says, every time I hear calf soreness and somebody plays too early, boom goes the Achilles, rest the man. Yeah. It's hard not to have that PTSD, right? After what we just dealt with Aaron Rodgers 2 years ago, when he had the calf, soreness in mini camp and then ends up tearing the Achilles in week 1.
People don't understand. And I think this is a great comment like that. And it's not just with that, with so many injuries, you might not mentally think, I'm favoring it. This is an injury. Your body protects you. And if you have some kind of slight injury, what I think happens is you put more pressure on something else. Something else takes up the weight. It's a natural thing that you do. If there's an injury in you and you're running and you have something wrong with your knee, your body's going to naturally take pressure off that knee, and that pressure has to go somewhere else. So that's why it's so important when you have an injury that you have to rest it and get better and heal, because this is the exact kind of thing that can happen. If you try to play through something like that, boom, the Achilles, so it's 100% a real thing. And that's why a lot of times you'll see people try to play through things, or teams make the decision to play a guy through an injury and it leads to a much worse injury. And, probably a million doctors in the background, or the team doctor saying, I told you, so.
Yeah, it's sometimes you got to save the player from themselves too. I feel that way a lot with Jermaine Johnson. Like, he's been pushing for a while now that he's ready. He's 100% cleared to go by his doctors, and it's the Jets who's taking it slow. I'm repeating myself, but I don't mind that approach, because let's face it, you look at the Jets, edge depth beyond the top two guys, it gets thin pretty quickly. So they can't afford to bring Jermaine Johnson back too early, and then you're shit out of luck if, God forbid, he, has a setback and is going to miss a few weeks.
Yeah, and there's a young player who got injured. Like, youth doesn't matter. Like, safety first, being cautious, being safe, not risking something much worse for something that doesn't have to be. You got a guy who has soreness in his calf. This could probably be something, hopefully, we're hoping, that will shut him down for a week, hopefully not too much longer, and he's back for week 1. Or you could play games for no reason and keep him out there and keep pushing and say, well, he'll be fine. And then you have either the calf itself or another part of his body gets hurt because he's favoring it or running weird or whatever it is. It's just not worth it. It's not going to make him a worse player or a better player. As long as he's, if he's out for a week and then he's back the rest of the camp, he's going to be ready for week 1.
Absolutely. And changing gears a little bit, getting into some things that we saw at practice today, something that still really bothers me, Jeremy, and I feel like it's going to bother you as well, but I just want to get your take on it. We'll pull it up. Our friend of the show, Jets Media, was at camp, and he had this tweet saying that Josh Myers in at the starting center for today's practice. Joe Tippmann is with the second team the center battle continues.
Uh,
Jeremy, why are they doing this, Jeremy? Can you give me an answer here, because I don't really understand it.
I call this clickbait. You want a lot. I look. I'm on Twitter. Or X. I want a lot of people to view my stuff. I don't like, nothing personal. I like the person. I like the guy putting the post. But I don't like things that create fear, and create things that are a one-sided way of looking at something. Running Josh Myers with the one doesn't mean it's an open competition. It doesn't. And Aaron Glenn even saying Aaron Glenn will say every position is an open competition, which is what we want. If you show up at camp, I don't care if you're the named starter. If you don't play well and you get outplayed, every player should have an opportunity to win a starting job. But the reality is that's not what we're seeing. I mean, we have had Simpson off the field for most of training camp. He used Tippmann at guard, right? And there's a very strong possibility during the season that if either AVT, knock on wood, it doesn't happen, or Simpson are not able to go, or they have even a 2-week injury, we know the plan, and the plan is going to be move Tippmann over, and Myers plays center. Well, what does that mean? If you want to have, if you want the offensive line to be synchronous and used to working with each other, and you think there's a really good chance that Myers might end up having to play, even if it's just 2 or 3 games, you want him to have reps with the ones. You want him to be part of the system, part of the, the communication, everything like that. You don't want it to be just the 5 working together every time. And then all of a sudden somebody gets hurt, somebody comes in and they don't fit in with the rest of the team. They're no longer a unit. Myers there's a very strong possibility he's going to be playing. Knock on wood, I'm hoping it doesn't happen, just based on reality, right? You have 2 guards. Do you think they're both going to play 17 games, 100% of the snaps? We need to be synchronized. Myers has to be able to play with the rest of the offensive line at center. And I think that's what you're seeing. You're going to see them all getting 1 reps in all different kind of combinations. It wouldn't even surprise me if you see Mitchell getting, reps with the one team as well. And that's totally fine and understandable. But reading into it and thinking, oh, it's a competition. It's not a competition. Everything's a competition, but it's no more a competition than it is anybody else. I promise you, week 1, unless barring injuries, Tippmann is our starting center.
I think Tippmann should be the starting center. The only area where I'll give you pushback on this is, if that's the case, then why not run Joe Tippmann at guard with the 2s instead of at center with the 2s? Right? Like, if you want to get Myers reps with the 1s at center, wouldn't you then theoretically want to get Joe Tippmann reps at guard so he feels comfortable?
Yes, but you also, every combination, who's playing guard instead of him? And you still want him to work at center, right? Because he bobbled a snap. Tippmann. He bobbled a snap, right? I mean, well, is it a coincidence? He's been playing a lot of guard, less center, and now all of a sudden that muscle memory might be struggling a little bit. I mean, I'm just saying that I'm not reading into any of it. I just think they have different combinations of what they're doing. And because if you don't want any combination in a real game to be the first time it's ever happened.
I understand that. I get
that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I think Tippmann is going to be the starting center on this team. A part of me just feels a little bit uneasy with the idea of continuing to give Myers the rep. Not continuing, but just there's been a few occasions. One day when I went to camp earlier on, Myers was running with the 1s and Tippmann was with the 2s. Today, kind of the same thing. I just don't look at those 2 guys and think they're really all that close in level of play. I don't think there's really a justification for playing Josh Myers at center over Joe Tippmann, unless there's, as you pointed out, unless there's an injury to one of the guards, which they did. They moved Joe Tippmann over and he played well against the Green Bay Packers. In fact, I thought the entire line, even the depth guys, played well against the Green Bay Packers. With John Simpson missing a little bit of time, I just think my preference would have been you get your 5 back out there. You have them practice all week and then play together as the starters in the game against the Giants. That's all.
Yeah, and we did see that against the Packers, right? We saw the combination that we wanted, of Tippmann at left guard and Myers playing center. So we did get it then. I can't it's hard to jump into their brain and know what they're doing. Maybe maybe it's going to alternate each practice. Maybe it's going to look different. I just think the best guess is they anticipate a really strong possibility that Myers is going to end up, being needed at some point during the season in some way, and that they just want him to have reps with with some of the ones, or against strong competition. I mean, he's not just your typical, we drafted him in the third round, developing him back up. We went out and we paid money, and found this guy and signed this guy, and so it makes me feel like there's really a consideration of the fact that that he's going to play, and they're treating him almost like a sixth guy, like a sixth starter, like a swing kind of guy that they really just want to get the work in also. But I hear your concern of, I'm sure if they knew Simpson wasn't going to be there week 1, they would just have Tippmann at left guard and Myers at center and be, doing a lot of reps that way. But they probably think Simpson's coming back. So let's get back to also giving Tippmann reps at center, because that's where he's probably going to be playing, week 1.
Peter S chimes in, says Myers Myers 1 day at center versus Tippmann 4 days at center. Not really a competition, just getting them rotated appropriately. That kind of sounds like you're on the same page there with Peter in that philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, I like to see that in other positions too. I mean, I hope, and maybe there is. I'm not going to camp. You guys tell me, the guys that are going to camp. I mean, is that the only place where we're seeing, like, are the receivers alternating at all? Who's playing with the ones and who's not playing with the ones?
There's not a crazy amount of difference. They rotate the backs a lot with the ones, which is understandable. I think they're going to do that a lot in season.
Yeah.
When they do 12 personnel with the tight ends, usually the 2 on the field when healthy, it's Mason Taylor and Jeremy Ruckert. Beck gets a good amount of rotation in with the ones. The wide receivers, I feel like, rotate to a certain degree. Not that, like, you're going to get Malachi Corley running with the ones very often, or Brandon Smith running with the ones very often, but they do rotate through.
Yeah. So I think that's all it is. I just think it's crazy to call it a battle. I mean, I do think, I hope, I really want it to be. I mean, I've referred this before and I'll say it again. Pete Carroll, one thing I really loved about him as a head coach, he still is a head coach, is that he does not care about how much a guy gets paid and what their name is. Like, he goes into camp with you win your job, right? Now, you have presumed starters, but if somebody who's a presumed starter plays like crap and somebody behind them is playing better, and then you kind of alternate them with the ones, anybody can win anybody's job. That should be the mentality. That's what we want. We want the best guys out there. And I'm sure that's the case with Tippmann and Myers, as like anybody else. But the reality is, it's not a battle, more like where you put an exclamation point next to any other position, right? I mean, just because he's taking snaps with the ones. Like, I just don't think that that's reality, in the sense that you already see what Tippmann did against Green Bay. You see what he brings, the athleticism, just like you pointed out earlier. There's really no comparison in their talent and potential. And it would be shocking and disappointing. I mean, and really, like, unnerving if week 1 came out and Myers was the starter and Tippmann was on the bench, unless there's something behind the scenes we don't know about, like attitude, something he's saying to the team, not learning to play. Like, it would have to be something we don't know what's going on. But, like, from our eyes, there's no way there's a competition battle here. Tippmann is clearly the better player. If the only thing we should debate is, after next year, if we don't keep Tippmann or AVT, like, if we can't keep both, I mean, Simpson and AVT, if we can't keep both of them, the discussion should really be, should Tippmann be moved over to a guard? Because a lot will argue that Tippmann is a natural guard. Like, that's where he belongs. At 6'6", it's not natural for him to play center.
Yeah, which is a great segue into John's comment here, saying it's clear they intend on moving Tippmann to guard next year while re-signing either AVT or John Simpson long-term. So you can see that as a possibility if, for whatever reason, they have to choose one or the other between Simpson or AVT. In a perfect world, I think you retain both, but maybe that's not possible here. And then would you believe that Myers would be retained and brought back to be the center, or go just a completely different direction there at center?
I think that as long as his price doesn't go up too much and he recognizes he's going to start, like he might be a little bit, he needs to know he's going to start, right? If he has, when you're a free agent, you have other teams calling you and telling your agent he'll start for us. We're signing him to be our starting center, and we're not guaranteeing him that he's gone. He's going to leave. But if we, give him the competitive offer, which is not going to be a crazy amount of money, and the assurance, no, we're moving Tippmann over and you're going to be the starter. There's no, he's a good option, but there's also, remember, center is the type of position where, just like where we got Tippmann at 40, right? And he was one of the, and he was more than just a center. Everybody recognized that he was an internal offensive lineman, that versatile, that could play all three. Centers specifically, especially if you're a one-way player, if you're just center, right? And you don't have a lot of background playing any other position, you could be one of the top centers in the draft, top 3 center in the draft, and be available in the 3rd round. I mean, it's not the hardest position in the world to fill. If you're talking about, do I want to need a guard or do I want to be in need of a center? If you're talking about terms of which do you want your team to be in need of, it's certainly easier to solve the center problem based on value of the league, like cost, whether it's salary and free agency or whether it's in the draft. You definitely get more value filling the center position with either a later round pick or just less money, and get an average to above average player.
Yeah, it's a really good call out. And you start looking at some of these contracts that have been signed this offseason by guards, the price tag continues to go up there, where if you look at center, that market really hasn't. I mean, it's gone up year over year, like every other positional group, but not nearly as much as it seems like the top guards are getting. Guards are getting now over $20 million. I don't think we're seeing centers get anything close to that yet.
Yeah, I mean, maybe approaching very high, 15 plus million for a center. You're talking about Pro Bowler guys, right? You're talking about the elite, the top 4 or 5 centers in the league. And I don't even know. We'd have to do some. You're the type of guy that will research that, like what the top paid centers are paid. But it's certainly not nearly as high as what the top guards are paid. Right.
Yeah. 18 million. Creed Humphrey is the highest one. Cam Jurgen 17. But if you look at guard, you're over 20 already. 21, Landon Dickerson, Quentin Nelson's 20. I think there's a couple right guards over 20 also. Yeah. Trey
Right.
Smith, 23.5.
Yeah.
Lindstrom,
look how many guys are 17 or above that match the highest paid center.
Right. There's at least probably 10, if not more, including both left and right guard.
Yeah.
So interesting discussion there. We got Dano hanging out with us, says, I would like to see Tippmann pull more. Maybe we are developing a sub O-line package where we have our guards pull more often. He certainly has the athleticism to do it, Jeremy. That's what I really like about this offensive line. Across the board, all of them can really get out in space and move really well.
Oh, it's a beautiful thing. Like we were talking about when the beginning of camp, like we have 4 offensive linemen that are specifically run blocker first kind of guys that, that's their specialty, that they are athletic, that they can get to the second level, maybe definitely stronger on our right side than our left side. Whereas Olu is more known as the blocking guy, which is why he's on the left side and he's a left tackle. And maybe Simpson might not be as strong or as athletic as AVT, but still very good. But now from what we're seeing, Olu is blowing us away against the run. He's doing, much better than anybody had anticipated he'd be. But no question, like overall, when you look at our offensive line, the strength of this offensive line is these are athletic, fast players that can get to the second level, or you could shift them, swing them. You could do a whole bunch of cool things. And, on X, if you look on X, I did a post, followed Just Chaos, a Joe Tippmann play, where it shows him, breaking out into the second level and picking up a key block in the play.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's going to be something really exciting that we get to see this year. I'm scrolling back. You had a bunch of them. Oh, here's a good one that you could pull up right here. This is more pass protection from Joe Tippmann. I just saw the name Joe Tippmann and I clicked on it, but we can go.
There was one person of the thousands of people who liked it and watched it and viewed that video. I had one person tell me that was a pressure. That's what he said. He criticized it and said it was a
no,
pressure.
it's not. Come on.
Not a pressure. It's the funniest thing in the world.
Oh, there's no way.
Look what he does to his guy. Look what he does to his guy. He threw him away and then picks up the stunt. I mean, you can't ask for a better play than that.
Come on now. Oh, goodness gracious. Well, we get that a lot, unfortunately. That happens a lot. People don't know what they're always looking at. I was looking, I didn't see. I like the Membo one that you clicked. I know we weren't talking about him in particular, but this one going up against Kenny Clark, I think was my favorite pass blocking rep of the day.
So I want to say, like, sometimes you could have a good rep, but like the technique's not completely there. You got away with it or whatever. When you watch that play, what you'll notice, and even when their helmets go, his helmet fell to his left and the defender's right. That's because where the middle of his face mask, right, when he made contact, when he established contact, was in between the center of the helmet, the face mask, and the defender's right shoulder pad. That is perfect technique. That is exactly what you want to do. What that does is it takes the inside out, right? The inside is the most dangerous side to get beat because that's the closest route to the quarterback. So the fact that he's lining up and doing that, when people say, well, then Jeremy, why doesn't everybody make sure they line up there? When you see a player center themselves and not do that and not cheat to the inside, the reason they're doing that is because they don't trust their athleticism if the guy speed rushes and tries to get around them. Membu, being as fast and athletic as he is, doesn't have to worry about that. So he could line up, take out the inside, and if the guy tries to go wide, he walks the arc with him. And that's what we're looking for. It's not just that he beat the rep. It's the technique was just so perfect.
I like it. That's a really good call out. I want to change gears a little bit from the offensive line conversation that we were just having and talk about someone else who's had a really good camp so far. And it was a draft pick that was maybe a little criticized, but that was Aryan Smith. Made a really nice catch today, going up and getting the football. I know, everyone knows he's extremely fast and, can make plays down the field with his speed, but going up and winning a contested catch, showing a little bit more of the well-roundness in his game.
Look, when he was drafted, everybody talked about the drops. I didn't even talk about the drops. I just wanted Royals. And I'll never hide from that. As a prospect, I was, we all have our things. I was very high on Royals. I couldn't believe he was still there. I thought it would have been the steal of the draft. So for me, that's what it was about. Like, why didn't we take Royals? We had a guy who, without injury, could have very easily justified being a second-round pick. All I heard was the drops. He had 10 drops. So when I want to say that's a lot for college football, I'm not saying it's not a lot. It's a lot. 10 drops is a lot. It should be more like 5. But at the end of the day, it's 10 instances of his life in the course of the 4 or 5 months of the season. It doesn't mean he can't catch. It doesn't mean that will be his entire career, right? It means maybe we don't know why that happened to him. Distraction, didn't work on it, whatever it was. The reality is, and as you're seeing in camp, players work on that. Right? He's working on the machines. He's working on that. And don't be surprised. He may have some drops like every player. There might be drops. It might be a real thing. But what everybody overlooked with this kid was the plays where he didn't drop the ball. You know what I mean? Like, nobody watched the route running, the speed, and what he does. And I think they drafted him as a role player initially. Like, obviously, you hope anybody could develop. When Kansas City drafted Tyreek Hill, it was as a role player. I'm not comparing Smith to Tyreek Hill. I'm not saying he's going to be Tyreek Hill. I'm just saying when they drafted Tyreek Hill in the 4th round, it was as a role player. It was a guy who could take the back end off the defense to keep the safeties honest, right? So in a certain situations, you could bring him in and you could literally pull double coverage off of other guys, because if you put your safeties in, you're dead. If you put your safeties in the box, you're dead, because you have this guy on the field that causes this problem for the defense. So if he ends up being more than that, great. But when you understand he got drafted by Georgia, he became a starting wide receiver for Georgia, for an SEC, national championship caliber team.
Yeah, powerhouse.
Okay? This kid did things in his life to earn that spot. And I think that that's what we're seeing in camp. And the fact that he's working on his hands, we're seeing the results of that, shows he's a hard worker. It shows that he could recognize where he needs to put the work in. And I have a lot of hope for him.
Yeah, and I do appreciate it. Feels like every day after practice, he's staying on the field longer and taking reps on the jugs machine. Like, obviously, I was pretty critical of the pick too at the time, But once these guys are drafted by the Jets, like, I want them to be awesome. I hope that Aryan Smith is a stud and way out progresses anything that we think he could do at this level and proves me wrong, right?
Mhm.
But I think it would be, I think it would have been disingenuous at the time if every single pick the Jets made go, oh, that's great. This guy's going to be the next, star wide receiver. He does this, this, and this well, or, for whatever position it is. With Smith, what I like, and something you mentioned about the safeties, due to his deep threat, the opposing defenses aren't going to be able to just load up the box, right? And I think that's the issue that so many fans point out with this offense. They go, well, it's Garrett Wilson and not really a whole lot else. So, the Jets are going to want to run the ball a lot. They're just going to, cheat the safeties down and stop the run. Well, if that's the case, someone like Arian Smith can help push those safeties back and, open things up for the run game itself too.
Yeah, and Fields is the kind of guy that you snap the ball to him, could run, towards the sideline or whatever, plant, and just throw it down the field, straight ahead down one of the sidelines to Smith. If you do that, you stack that box, he takes off, you roll your quarterback. We all know people can say whatever they want about Fields. No, he's got an arm. He'll launch it. He has no problem launching it. And especially, and any NFL quarterback, if you got a guy who you stack the box and you let a guy who's faster get by you and pass the defense, any quarterback in the league better be able to hit that receiver open, obviously.
Yeah, without a doubt. And if he's adding some of the underneath stuff and the route running and making those catches in contested spots, that will take him from potentially just being a gadget or role player into having a bigger role. And, I hope that he ends up being a wide receiver 2 or 3 on this team. That'd be great if they were able to find someone, in the middle of the draft that can do that. I think part of it too, for me, is also just seeing how often we've been burned by this in the past, whether it's you look back a year prior in Corley or Denzel Mims, Elijah Moore, Stephen Hill, or Darius Stewart, and the miss after miss after miss at the position. You start to become a little bit more tentative with these players.
Yeah. I mean, I agree 100%. And I think, one of the things also with him, when you talk about, because that's the beautiful thing when a guy comes in to fill a specific role, but then they evolve and they keep developing and they become more than just a role player. He also, if Corley doesn't make the team, I see someone saying Corley will be cut, and that might be the case. But if Corley doesn't make the team, one of the things we wanted Corley for was to also be an extra tool or weapon out of the backfield, like for sweeps, double reverses, things like that. I mean, Smith is, built for the speed, right? I mean, those kind of plays, misdirections are all about speed, right? So what if Smith is coming around the backfield and you create a misdirection and you hand him the ball? You're not recovering from that. He's gone, right? Because he's one of the fastest, players on our team in the league. So there's a lot of reason for that pick. But I think the best news and the thing we should all be celebrating is that he's having a great camp. He's creating space. He's doing what he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. But most importantly, the one critique, the biggest fear we had about him, is not a problem right now in camp. If you didn't know that stat from college, the last thing you'd say about this kid is he has drops problems. You would never say that based on what we're seeing in camp. So that to me says so much about the player when that was his biggest criticism by anyone. And then he comes in and it's not an issue at all.
Yeah, that hasn't been an issue, right? It's not like we're listening and every day Connor Hughes is tweeting, oh man, another Arian Smith drop. That hasn't been the case. He's making plays, and they need that, as we discussed, because wide receiver is a bit of a weaker spot for them. So I'd love to see that today. I thought it was really cool to see, Arian Smith out there making some plays for this Jets offense. And while we're on the offense conversation, we have another chat that I wanted to go to and was kind of on our topic list to discuss anyway. All American says, Matt, I am sure you touched on it last night, but what does Mr. Chaos feel now about Breece Hall and possibly trading him with how Edwards looked?
I don't think it would be Donovan Edwards that, if he was traded, would be what created the comfort of them trading him. I think that to trade Breece Hall, if that would happen, I think what needed to have happened for that scenario to take place is that Braylon Allen would have had to prove that he could be, a real true RB1. Like they'd have to have super confidence that if he's your best running back, that's enough. And that same for Isaiah Davis, like, same kind of thing. Like it would show that they have a tremendous amount of confidence in both, Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis. They would have to have that confidence, that level of confidence. It doesn't hurt that Donovan Edwards looks that good. I'm not saying it doesn't matter. I'm just saying, I think as good as he looks, if something was wrong with Allen or Davis and they didn't look good to them, if the coaching staff just wasn't happy with their progress, if they didn't believe either of them could step up as a cow back, as your primary back, there's no way they trade Breece Hall. I don't think. So I think that has so much more like that, that's so much more of importance that those two backups have to be on par. But I think Donovan Evans, that might just make it more doable. Like if those two guys are, and you do believe they could step up, it makes it a little bit more like you could breathe and more doable, feeling, oh, wow. And now if one of those guys gets hurt, we have this young guy that we really like for depth. So we don't feel that we're making ourselves thin at the position. So I would say in that priority, it's all about Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis. Can they step up and fill that role at running back? And then, just as far as trading them though, you gotta consider, what is another team in the league willing to trade for him that makes it worth it for you?
I don't think you would be, if you were trading Breece Hall right now, I don't think you're getting more than a 4th round pick back.
Oh, yeah, it would be hard to get a 4th, maybe. You might have to get back a 6th.
Right. And I don't think that's not worth it to me, especially when you factor in how much he's going to be utilized catching the ball this year. I really believe he's going to be second on the team in receptions behind Garrett Wilson. I think it goes Garrett, Breece, and Mason Taylor as the top 3.
And that's I think, more than his running ability. I think if they don't trade him, you say, well, why didn't they trade him? That is more the answer than anything. Everybody agrees that we're lacking wide receiver weapons. Everyone's concerned about the weapons. After Garrett Wilson, what do you have? We love Aryan Smith, but he's a rookie, right? And he came in for a specific role, and nobody likes Lazard. It seems like he's the most hated Jet in history. So it's like, who is there? Who do we like? And then you talk about the fact that Breece Hall, one of the things that make him as scary to the defense as he is the receiving ability. He gives Garrett Wilson another weapon. I mean, he gives Justin Fields another weapon that he so desperately needs. So that's where we might feel the real pain. I mean, we have a running back who could line up on the outside and run wide receiver quality routes. That's basically what it is. I mean, and that go route, we've talked about it so many times. We want to see Breece running those go routes against linebackers and safeties.
Yeah, it worked so well last year against Tennessee, and then they never did it again. It just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I think Rico the Pup's comment here really summarizes my feelings on it, saying something tells me AG doesn't go to a player and let him know how much he has planned for him in the passing game if he plans on trading the guy. Right. Like that would just go up against everything that they've said so far. And plus too, like at training camp, they're working in Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis and all those guys. I don't want to make it seem that Breece has been the bell cow, but it's not like Breece has had a shitty camp. Like he's performed in training camp. And I know, he had 3 carries for 9 yards against Green Bay, but I can't just go, well, Donovan Edwards had, 70 yards against the 3rd and 4th stringers in week 1 of the preseason. And now I'm ready to move off of Breece Hall because he had 3 carries for 9 yards. And that was enough for me.
Yeah. No, I mean, none of the language of the coaching staff and none of their actions suggest a trade. Remember, every bit of trade, all the talk of it has originated from one thing or 2 things. From the media and the fan base. Like all Breece trade talks, all of that, none of that has come from anyone that matters. Right. And that's a fact, so because nothing AG has ever suggested, nothing Estrand, none of the press conferences, anyone ever suggested any hint at all from anything they said that this is a guy that you might see traded. There are other guys where they say, work on this, work on that, and you never know. And we're evaluating. But with Breece Hall, it's been nothing but we believe in him. We're fantastic. We love the camp he's having. We have all these plans to utilize him. He's a weapon on every part of the field. All you're seeing or hearing is how they're going to use him. Now, if you come to me and say, yeah, Jeremy, but maybe they're just trying to build him up to raise his trade value, that's fine. But that's not enough for us to sit here and take and really believe they're looking to trade him, because that's just all theory. That's just, creating theory.
It is. And even like Jets fan 17's commenting saying, what if the Jets traded Breece for Terry McLaurin? I don't think this makes sense either, because we talked about this a few weeks ago. Terry McLaurin's looking for a new contract, and he wants to be paid like DK Metcalf, which I believe is $33 million. I think he really wants 30
more than Garrett.
Right, which you just paid Garrett Wilson a month ago. You said, we believe in you. You're our guy. We're going to reward you after 3 years in the league and give you a contract. And then a month later you go, oh, you know what? By the way, we're going to trade for Terry McLaurin and pay him more than you. And I get it. Like, the contract doesn't kick in for a couple more years. I understand that. But the optics, like, it's fun in Madden, but it's not real life.
People understand Garrett Wilson's salary is, people say, well, because I'll say Terry McLaurin is a good wide receiver. He's not one of those elite guys. He's not Chase. He's not Jefferson. He's not anything like that. And someone would say, well, we paid Garrett that much. Well, we really didn't. Because if you average out Garrett, how much he's going to make over the next 6 years, it's not over $30 million. He's not being paid like an elite receiver when you look at it from that perspective. And if you say, yeah, but when it kicks in, he is. Yeah, but when it kicks in, it won't be. Because by the time 2027 rolls around and Garrett's getting his 31 million or whatever it is, guys like Chase and guys like him that are now signing are going to be getting 35, 36 or whatever it is. So you have to look at the reality of the contract. Terry wanting 30 million now this year, not later. Average salary, if we pay him 33 plus, you're paying him as if he's Jamal Chase or Jefferson, and he's not. Look at his numbers. He's not. He's a great player. He's a very good wide receiver. He's a WR1 for an NFL football team, and I'm not taking that away from him, but doesn't tip the scale the way one of those kind of players do. So if you're going to spend 33, 34 million a year on a receiver, you want a guy who tips the scale like a Jefferson. And we believe Garrett Wilson could be that guy. And a lot of his situation has been circumstance.
Right. And, just not Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase just got paid $40.25 million AAV.
Wow.
When someone like Malik Neighbors, who had 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns as a rookie, if he builds off that and is a 1,500-yard wide receiver the next 2 years, is he not going to get like 40? This number could be up to $45 million by the time Garrett's checks in.
By the time Neighbors needs to get paid, yeah. And the other thing is let's say you did trade for Terry. Don't get me wrong, I love him on the team.
He's a great player.
He's a great player. There's no argument about it. Let's say you pay him $34 million. You have to consider the cap. What does that mean for the salary cap later on? Because there's some, right? We all talk about, are we going to stop re-sign Tippmann, AVT? Jermaine Johnson's going to need a contract. The year after that, Will McDonald. Will McDonald next year is going to have the extension year where you want to try to extend them. Same thing, right? That's Will McDonald's going to be at that point where it's like where you want to do the same kind of deal you gave Garrett and Sauce. You're going to want to give McDonald the 4-year extension that starts after his rookie contract, get ownership for, team control for 6 years. So you want to do all these things. How are you going to give, now you're going to put 60, if they give him 34 million plus Garrett's 31, you're investing over $60 million a year into the wide receiver room. And at the current moment, you have a quarterback who has not been a guy, not putting him down again, but the style of game he plays, the kind of offense and the kind of scheme that we're building for Justin Fields doesn't exactly utilize and leverage 2 premier WR1 type wide receivers.
Yeah. And then you got what do they do with Jermaine Johnson? Right? Like, he might need a contract extension. What do you do about the guards? Do you want to keep both? Do you want to keep one? Eventually you're going to have to pay Olu and Membu too. That's a few more years down the line, of course, obviously, but it's it gets a little bit more interesting. And I just don't think the Jets are in a spot where they're going to be looking to trade for a guy like Terry McLaurin, but it brings in, an interesting conversation because there's been a ton of Breece Hall conversation amongst Jet fans. And my argument is I just think it's gone too far the other way. I think you can make the case a couple of years ago. Yeah, we probably overrated Breece Hall, But I almost now feel like Breece Hall's become underrated because the scale has tipped so far the other direction.
Yeah, I do want to throw in that if we fast forward 2 years from now, right, and we have, and just a complete hypothetical, we have a quarterback like a Drew Aller, right? We drafted him, a Manning, whatever it is. We draft one of these guys, and let's say they're lighting it up, right? They're looking like they're going to be the guy, and we're going to be a very high passing team, right? We're not going to waste that. We have this guy who can just air it out, and we're in the situation we're in now. That changes the value of a Terry, right? And the need for a WR2, because now you're a different kind of offense. Now you have a quarterback that's dropping back 3 to 5 steps and going through progressions. So now you want that second progression. You want that other wide receiver. Team is in a different place in 2 years from now. And maybe that, and you still have a few years left with your quarterback who you drafted. Now's the time to do it. This isn't the time to be loading up on stars as we're trying to build this. There's a timing to it. If anything, you see what they're doing. 1-year contracts, 2-year contracts at the most. Small commitments as we build this out. That's why I like the argument better of, we have this extra money, why don't we sign a 1-year edge just to, try to make the playoffs this year. But that's the kind of signings we're looking for. Value 1-year kind of signings. We're just not in the stage of our development as a football team to go all out and pay $34 million for a star.
And someone that you have to trade for too, and give up draft capital for, which also doesn't make sense if you think, even if there's a chance that you have to potentially move up for a quarterback in next year's draft, which I'm sure maybe not now in August, but this might be a conversation in, December, January, February, talking about what are they doing at quarterback here.
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting.
They would want a 1 at the most, like at the least, they would want a 1 and then like a 2 the year after that or something, right? And maybe even some other picks. So no matter what, we lose our first round pick for next year. So if Fields isn't the guy and it doesn't work, now you have Terry. All right, we have Terry and we have Garrett Wilson, but now we have no first round draft pick, no quarterback. So what did you just do to yourself? So I mean, we could put that to bed. I think that, this is all opinion. People might disagree with you, with me. Fine. I'm just giving you, I'm letting you behind. I don't want to insult anybody and say your opinion's stupid or bad. I'm just letting you behind the curtain of my brain. This is what my brain tells me.
No, absolutely. So I think it's a good conversation to have, though, especially on Breece Hall. What else has been standing out from training camp for you that you wanted to get into today?
Wow. Injuries is obviously has been a little bit different with the press conferences and the information we're being given, which I think is a lot cleaner and better. And I feel better about it. But what I like about camp is I think the biggest thing that we're seeing is in the coaching staff. I mean, I think that's the biggest story of all of it. When you watch, when I said, oh, look how Tippmann picked up that stunt in that play, I don't know if he was doing that. I see a lot of guys doing things that involve communication and good coaching. And last year, a lot of us said, we have good offensive linemen. Why doesn't it look better? Coaching. And I think that for so early, just 3 weeks in camp, we are seeing a real difference in the coaching and the scheme, right? Having a sniffer, what we saw Beck do, in the beginning of that game, the plays he was able to make, that changes the way defenses are going to defend us.
Yep.
You're going to have to adjust to that. We haven't had that in years, creating real problems for the defense and things that they now are going to have to adjust and worry about.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool to see how much of an impact coaching matters, right? And I think we're all of the belief that last year's coaching staff just was not up to snuff, whether you want to talk Saleh or Ulbrich at the helm, and then, Nathaniel Hackett or Todd Downing calling plays, and, Rodgers wanting to do, things a certain way. It felt like a very archaic offense that the Jets was running, and a very pass-happy offense. And it's honestly going to be like a complete 180, right? Where you're going from out of the shotgun 95% of the time, drop back 40 times a game. And now, like we saw it in week 1, also in the preseason, Engstrand was using significantly more motion, which I think is something we all agree with that we wanted to see this year.
Yeah. I you go back to last year and, what it was is when you say archaic, not beyond archaic, it was predictable. That was the word Green Bean used to use it. It's so funny that Green Bean uses it, because out of all the people I know in my life, who's the most predictable person when they go on camera, right? Green Bean, right? Crusty old Green Bean in his trailer, right? Hey, guys, But, like, it's so funny because we say it during the game reactions. It was just the defense and the offense, both sides of the ball, was so predictable. You knew exactly what we were going to do. There was just no question there was nothing. It was the most predictable thing. Every team that was smart came in and played us the same way. Little 5-yard, you want to beat Sauce Gardner? He's playing zone back. Just throw it 5 yards to his side of the ball and take advantage of the one thing he's not an all-pro level player at, tackling, right? This year, it's not going to be that way. You're not going to know what you're going to get. Sometimes he might drop back in zone, but a lot of times he's going to step up and press. And you're not going to get away with you call a play like that, then the quarterback's going to be stuck because the guy's not going to be open. He's not going to be there for that quick slant. So just showing different looks and not being so predictable, huge.
Yeah, that it's going to make a really big difference. And the number of times they rushed the ball versus pass too. Like, was there really ever a game where they ran the ball 65% of the time last year?
I mean, when you cut the leash of a quarterback, it says every time they have this many guys in the box, I'm going to abandon the run and pass. Then you're allowing the other team to actually dictate what you do. Someone said to me, "Well, Jeremy, what's the alternative?" I don't know. Baltimore and Philadelphia, everybody knows they're running the ball, and yet they still are able to do it. So look at what they're doing. Why are they able to still run? But Aaron Rodgers decided, nope, every time I have this advantage that they have more guys in the box, I'm going to pass the ball. Well, it was not working. So, you have to have more balance. You have to run the ball, especially when that's the strength of your offensive line.
No, I'm with you. And again, you mentioned the word scheme. That's going to be such a huge difference. I think that was a big reason why the run game was bad. And the offensive line didn't look good last year, especially in run blocking, which never made sense because if you went down the line with guys like Joe Tippmann, John Simpson, Elijah Vera Tucker, how could they not get out in space and move people? It was frustrating was the word.
So frustrating. It was so blatant. Like, you knew the individual players were so much better that basically the sum was not anywhere, did not represent the parts at all.
No.
And we want the opposite. We want the sum to be even better than the parts, right? We want even a stronger effect.
Absolutely. I'm with you on that. Peter here has a good comment, which I think we could transition to close out the show, which is hoping for a solid game versus the Giants on Saturday, maybe even squeak out a win, but see more from fringe roster players. What are you looking for, or who are you looking at in particular in this game against the Giants coming up on Saturday?
Well, if we start our ones, I'm going to focus on Membu and Fashanu without question, because this is their biggest test.
Yep.
This is I think the Giants arguably have the best defensive line and defensive pass rush in the NFL. You got Burns, Tibbs, and now Abdul Carter. I mean, you got three guys who could be the number one edge on any football team. Pretty much, right? Arguably, for plenty of teams, they would be the number one. And I think that how our guys handle themselves, and I do want to set the expectation. I really don't think, and I really hope that our fan base is not hoping or going to freak out if they lose some reps, because great players, sometimes reps are won and lost, not because the player is doing anything wrong or they're not good. Sometimes you just have to give credit to a great football player, right? Sometimes an offensive tackle gives up a sack to Micah Parsons. It doesn't mean the offensive tackle is not a good football player.
No, or like the move that we saw yesterday in camp that Abdul Carter put on Joe Tippmann, him rushing up the middle with a 5-yard running head start.
Yeah,
that's going to be tough for a guy like Joe Tippmann. It's going to be tough for anybody.
Yeah. I mean, there's sometimes you just have to tip your cap to a good scheme. Like a really good play call that matched up against our play call really well, and just know that there are limitations to a football player, like how much they could do on a given play and what they could do every play after play. Like, to say the expectation is you win every single rep might not be a very fair expectation, specifically when you're playing what looks like it's going to be a Pro Bowl player. Like Abdul Carter looks like he's going to be a Pro Bowl caliber player. If you look at him, he looks phenomenal.
Yeah, that guy's a stud. And I'm going to be looking at the offensive line too, especially the young tackles. I think Membu had a tougher time yesterday from what I saw. He was going up against Brian Burns a lot, which another great edge rusher who puts up 8 sacks a year in his sleep, goes double digit a few times too. Like, yeah, of course he's going to struggle against guys like that. I wanted to bring up Mason Taylor. I think he was back at practice this week. Assuming he plays, I think we're going to see a lot of him in this game, which is something I'm excited for.
And I think that's a good thing. We need to see him because tight ends, I don't care if he has an NFL pedigree. I believe Glenn that he might play him more and he's going to give him an opportunity like Bowers and Laporta. Like he's going to be one of these tight ends that will get an opportunity. But we have to remember, in most cases, the norm is that a rookie tight end gets better throughout their career. You don't see their best year as a rookie. Like that's not them at their high, at their best. So this guy needs to get some work in, right? The kid needs to get some work in. I think the one thing that we could measure already about him, if you've been somebody following camp and you watch, it's been a continuation of his time at in college, is that this kid is a vacuum. If you throw the ball next to him, he catches it.
Yeah, it was funny to me that it seemed like some of the, I'll say, complaints or criticism of his game was he doesn't really offer much yards after the catch. Yeah. And part of me is like, I don't know. I kind of just like it to catch the ball. Like he's going to be open and have, I don't know, maybe 500 receiving yards this year and hopefully more beyond that. But I just want a tight end who's going to get open and catch the ball.
Yeah. How many tight ends that could do everything, block, run, and everything, catch, and then are great yak guys, right? That's their strength. I mean, we're going to name Kelsey? You're going to name Kittle? I mean, like, who are we talking? I mean, yeah, okay, he's not Kittle, he's not Kelsey. Okay, I guess we're not getting a Hall of Fame tight end. If he's not it's not like Hall of Fame or bust, guys. I mean, if it's 3rd and 8, and he's like, and you throw the ball to him, and he's 11 yards out, all you care about is he catches the ball. If he gets some extra yards or not, as long as he catches the ball and gets the first down. And it's not like he's going to have tons of space and he's like inept and he's not going to be able to get extra yards. What you're talking about, he's not Mark Bavaro, okay? He's not a guy that's going to carry 3 guys on his back. He's not going to do a cut move. He's not Bowers. And he's not going to make a cut move. But there's a reason he was drafted where he was drafted, and there's a reason he's a prospect that he was, because he has certain skill sets and certain that he doesn't have. But if you want a blocking tight end that's a vacuum, that's not going to drop the ball, that's really a smart player, that's going to be able to find open space on 3rd and 8, I think we drafted the right guy.
Right. He's going to be open on 3rd down and be a safety blanket. That's how I view him, which I'm totally good with. Last one for me. Does the legend of Jay Tufele carry over another week? Do we see another big performance from him? Or if not, who are you looking out for?
Look, I'm not going to go too crazy over one preseason game, but man, I think everybody in Jets world could agree with me. We would love to see it.
Sure.
I mean, how much would we love to see that? Like for him to just be one of that surprising type things that no one saw coming, and suddenly we have this stud who could do that. So look, it's a great game. He played a great game. He played really well. It gives us some hope. It gives us something to be excited about. I think we all recognize that we have to see a lot more from him. It's all about consistency. And can he do it week after week and really be that player? I'm not going to claim that he can. I'll claim that, man, I really hope so.
I hope so too. And you know what? To credit for him, he had a really strong practice yesterday. He was the defense was on the far field going up against the Giants offense, but all the reports that I saw yesterday was Tufele was getting a ton of pressure once again. So I love that. I hope we see it.
Fantastic. I'd love to see him get more time with the ones and like as much time as possible. And, I love as much sample of him as we can get. So those are the kind of things where I like to see. Like, I want to see, like, I love when the starters play. Yeah. But when the other team is playing their ones, I like to sneak in some guys to see what they can do. Like, to know what are they going to do in a real game,
Absolutely. Guys, that's going to do it for us on this one. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. We'll be back next Wednesday, 3 p.m. We'll recap whatever storylines come out of this Giants game. We'll talk training camp. and so much more. It's been a lot of fun. He's Jeremy, Jets Chaos. I'm Matt O'Leary. We'll catch you next time.
Peace.